Boy, have I been doing my study to get myself fresh on this Darlie Routier case. I know a lot of it, but I still have to go back because it's been a while since I've debated it. One of the reasons that non-supporters feel that her story, her guilt is just, is because of the many changing scenarios and stories that Darlie came up with, changing her story over and over. People have asked, show some of the inconsistencies. There was one time when I said, well, she changed her story 16 times, and somebody confronted me on it. So as I'm going through testimony for Greg Davis, I recall this from a long time ago, but I want to bring it back up about the changing stories. So Greg Davis has Jimmy Patterson on the stand during this testimony. He was the lead investigator in the case. He had a very controversial son, Chadwick Patterson, that he was accused of the crime as well. But during this, I want to show you that she changes her story about where she found the knife. After first saying that she saw it over the island, and Patterson went back and saw that you couldn't see it over the island. She actually changed it twice during this. But then she backtracked. So let's just go right up here. Okay, she's talking about where she followed the suspect towards the utility room. She saw it on the floor, talking about the knife. Okay, did she tell you when she saw it? When she got to the utility room, Patterson answers. All right, well, actually, isn't it a part of your report that she told you she saw it across the island? Yes, sir. In fact, you went and checked that out. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And did you ever confront her with the fact that you couldn't see the knife over the counter? The island. No, sir. She came back at a later date and said that. Matter of fact, I think she even called in and said something to Sergeant Lamar Evans about she didn't see the knife over the island and that she had to get to the utility room before she saw the knife. Okay, so she called back the next day and told you she was mistaken about that. Is that correct? I'm not sure if it was the next day. All right, well, let me see if this, showing a document, will refresh your memory. Okay, sir, it was the next day. So the day after she said she saw the knife from the inside the living room from the island, and Patterson went back in and took a look, from where she said she was, and you wouldn't be able to see the knife from the island. You wouldn't be able to see it. So she must have figured that out and called back to say, oh, no, that was a mistake. That was a changing story. All right, now check this out. All right, is there anything about that troubled you? Was that one of the things that you called an inconsistency? Yes, sir. Why is that? Well, when she first told me she saw the knife from the light switch, I couldn't see the knife from the light switch. And she changed it to where she saw the knife on the floor standing midway of that island. All right. Well, in between that time, she told you she saw it over the island. She called Sergeant Evans. She had not been back to the house yet? Had she? No, sir. So she would have no way of knowing whether that was wrong or right. Sir? Well, I'm not sure I understand your question. Well, she called you the next day without having gone to the scene personally and told you she had made a mistake. Is that right? Yes, sir. So she gave a supplemental report. Is that right? Yes, sir. Sort of like Officer Waddell gave you a supplemental report. Is that right? Greg Davis objected. Okay, this is her with Wayne Huff. My correction. Patterson is being cross-examined by the defense. Sort of like Officer Waddell gave you a supplemental report, is that right? That had no bearing on what they were talking about here, Darlie changing her story. So that's why it was objected to. I wonder if the judge did sustain it. And then they deflect, which is really good. I mean, this is a good point. It says, well, let me ask you this, Detective Patterson. Is it quite often that police officers have to go back and correct their mistakes in their reports and supplement reports? He objected to that. It's pretty good. Okay. Mr. Greg Davis retorted with, well, this isn't a supplemental report. This is two inconsistent stories given on 2 days back to back. I would hardly call that a supplement to give a contradictory story to a police officer. So again, I think the comparison, that's good. I don't remember this part of the testimony yet. So she basically did the same thing Officer Waddell did. What is that? She changed her mind about what she told you. Okay. Improper characterization. Waddell did. He didn't change his mind when he saw. I'm going, okay. Now, speaking on this, she did change her story twice. She told two back-to-back inconsistencies, which, she could be remembering things as she goes. She could be, things are coming to her after she's starting to heal. And she could be recalling things as she goes as a little bit differently than what she said in the first place. And I'll give her credit for that. Because things do happen. If you get to thinking about something and then you remember, oh no, that's not the way it happened, right? The same way with the focus notes. Darlie supporters claim that they wrote one thing in their medical report and said something else on the stand. I know that focus notes are just basic shorthand of what you felt for that day. They're notes to a report, actually. You can go back on the focus notes and look them over and write a full report. So, Darlie changes her story from what she tells the police right afterwards. But they always say, those nurses' focus notes, they don't match. They're not supplemental reports, I know that. They don't match. So if Darlie could sit back and and start to heal and start to think about things and say, you know what? That's not right. This is what happened. And something comes to her later. We have to accept that. And that's fine because it does happen to people. Same thing will happen with a focus note. If a focus note is just basically saying a line, a small sentence, well, later on, they could clarify exactly what that sentence meant. All right? So that's what that's one of the things that I was trying to talk about today was the inconsistencies in Darlie's story, and the fact that she was able to change her story and there was no, oh well, look at the difference, the focus notes with the nurses, I don't see anything that much different about what they wrote in the notes and what they said on the stand. They just elaborated. They took it from a small picture to a bigger picture, which is what Darlie does here. Justice for David and Damon.